Sayın Bakanım,
Distinguished Minister, distinguished Chairperson, distinguished executives, members of the press, dear guests, welcome to the 5th Turkish Capital Markets Congress.
efendim öncelikle sizleri Cumhuriyetimizin
First and foremost, in memory of Gazi Mustafa Kemal Atatürk and his comrades, I invite you to a minute of silence followed by our national anthem.
Saygıdeğer konuklar, şimdi Türkiye Sermaye...
Distinguished guests, organized by the Turkish capital markets, we will watch an opening video dedicated to our Congress.
Her canlı yaşamak için bir yuvaya ihtiyaç duyar. 8 milyar insan ve milyarlarca canlının yuvası artık tükenme noktasına geldi. Yaşam döngüsünün devamı için tüm canlıların birbiriyle olan ilişkisinde bir denge var. Ne yazık ki o denge bozuldu. Bir tarafım yanarken bir tarafımı sel götürüyor. Bir tarafta kasırgalar, tsunami, diğer tarafta şiddetli kuraklık ve çölleşme. Şimdi bir de pandemi. Gözle görülmeyen bir virüsle tüm yaşamlarınız alt üst oldu. Artık beni ve canlıları korumak için hareket zamanı. Sana emanet edilen bu doğayı geleceğe ödünç bırakacağını unutma. Sürdürülebilir bir dünya için artık sen de çözümün bir parçası ol. Çözüm için ilham doğada.
Sizce de doğanın sesine kulak verme zamanı gelmedi mi? Tıpkı doğanın kendi döngüsünde olduğu gibi atıklarını kaynak olarak kullanarak döngüsel ekonomiye katkı sağlamak bizim elimizde. Sıfır atık ve karbon nötr bir dünya için karbon ve su ayak izini azaltabilir, yenilenebilir enerji yatırımlarını hızlandırabiliriz. Sermaye piyasalarının dönüştürücü gücünden yararlanarak sürdürülebilir finansman araçlarıyla küresel problemleri çözebilecek projeleri finanse edebiliriz. Yatırımlarımızı sürdürülebilirliği odağa alan şirketlere ve fonlara yapabilir, sosyal ve çevresel fayda yaratan yatırımlarımızla etki yaratabiliriz. Bilim ve teknoloji temelli yenilikçi çözümleri hayata geçirmeliyiz. 5. Endüstri Devriminin evresinde gelecekte robot, insan işbirliğine dayalı yeni iş modelleri bizi bekliyor. Dijital çağda dönüşümün öncüsü bizleriz. Toplum 5.0'la insanın merkezde olduğu bir kalkınma anlayışını benimsemeliyiz. Değişime en hızlı şekilde uyum sağlayan, geleceğin mimarı yeni nesil girişimciler için gerekli olan finansman, sermaye piyasalarımızda. Adil ve kapsayıcı sosyal girişimlerle pozitif değerler zincirinin bir halkası olabiliriz. Yıkıcı yeniliklerle finansın çehresini değiştirebiliriz. Düşün, öğren, keşfet, geleceği tasarla ve harekete geç. Geleceği birlikte inşa etmek için buradayız. Gücümüzü her zamanki gibi birliğimizden alıyoruz. Tek başına az ama birlikte çok şey başarırız. Güçlü sermaye piyasaları yükselen Türkiye'nin teminatı olacaktır. Sermaye piyasalarının kalbi yeniden bu kongrede atıyor. Hep birlikte gelişmek ve geliştirmek için yeniden birlikteyiz. Türkiye Sermaye Piyasaları Kongresi.
Ben Bora Balar.
Efendim ben
I'm Balar and I'm Shafak Ture, and we will be your master of ceremony for the coming 2 days with the theme Together Again, organized for the 5th time by the Capital Markets Board of Turkey, will take place today and tomorrow, and it is going to be an online event bringing more than 200 experts, both from Turkey and from all around the world. We will have 35 panels, and we will have 23 different training programs. We are living in an unprecedented era because of COVID, and in order to decrease the infection and with all the lockdowns and everything, global economy and all social life came to a halt. But thanks to the vaccination rollout, the global economy is now questioned. When will it go back to normal and when will we face recovery? And in the meanwhile, together with tens of panels, the Turkish Capital Markets Congress will focus on many hot topics. More than 200 experts and specialists and members of academia will get together. And of course, we have distinguished international guests like James Rickards, Emin Gürsel, Professor Dr. Mervyn King, Walt Wackman, Professor Dr. Alex Nichols, and Philip Valley, and many more experts will be with us to express their views and ideas. All those registered guests, well, on behalf of you, to make sure a sustainable environment, we will throw 25,000 seeds for a better future, supported by Borsa Istanbul Settlement and Custody Bank, and also the Capital Markets Board of Turkey. We will have numerous training programs which are available online. Please visit our website to have further information on our program. If we will have enough time for Q&A session, then you can ask your questions directly to our panelists, and we will have simultaneous training programs. We have a vision to become the Davos of Turkey, and in order to have their opening remarks. Now I invite Turkish Capital Markets Association Chairperson İbrahim Öztop.
Değerli meslektaşlarım, basın
Distinguished colleagues, members of the press, and dear participants, on behalf of Turkish Capital Markets Association, I welcome all of you. We will have a chance to discuss all the recent topics and welcome to the 5th Turkish Capital Markets Congress. As you remember, last time we got together on 2019 November, and the theme of that year was transformation. But then came COVID and everything changed. And we experienced an unprecedented change and transformation that surpassed our insights back in 2019. And the pandemic taught us that we have to come up with policies that will change and transform everything. So that is why we set the theme as Together Again for 2021 Congress. You just followed the introduction video and you must have recognized that threats surrounding climate change is on the rise, and the severity and the frequency is also changing. Science people urge us to take measures to protect biodiversity and our environment. And in our Congress, we will have 11 panels to bring many Turkish and international guests together to have their insights and their opinions. For a green transformation, there will be additional billion-dollar investments in each year, and those investments will be fundamental because when it comes to sustainable economies, well, I believe that capital markets play a huge role. And one of the most important transformation during the pandemic was the accelerating digitalization efforts because it brings flexibility and it adds to your efficiency and it transforms all business models actually. With the developing technologies, of course, we are pushed to transform ourselves in our respective fields as well. Fintech and related technologies will reshape the financial sphere, and Turkish Capital Markets Board, together with related institutions, are some of the institutions that can transform and together with all the investments, we made sure that we provided continuous service even during the pandemic era. And in the future, we believe that such investments and endeavors are crucial to turn Istanbul into a finance center. In order to have a sustainable economy, we have to develop capital markets and we have to deepen it. And if we want to deepen our capital markets, then we have to increase the number of investors. And during the pandemic, as you know, just like in the globe, we increased the number of investors, but we have to protect it. So we have to make sure that our investors are satisfied, and this requires some policy change. And this is always in our agenda. And the ultimate goal of our board is to help our country develop. So of course, we prioritize increasing the welfare of our stakeholders as well. One of our most important stakeholders is our community, but also our investors. The new generation entrepreneurship is shaping the competitiveness. Each day we see a new brand, global name, but of course in this field, the responsibility of capital markets is crucial. So be sustainability or entrepreneurship, it'll be heavily discussed during our two-day Congress. And post-pandemic economy and financial market sustainability, digital transformation and future plans, new generation entrepreneurship and opportunities in capital markets are just some of the topics that will be discussed in our two-day Congress. And throughout these 2 days, we will have 35 panels, 23 training sessions to bring many NGO representatives, public-private representatives and experts together. Panels and trainings will be online and they are free of charge and available online. And within the framework of adding value and within our social responsibility, we took initiative as the Capital Markets Board, and on behalf of all participants, in order to provide a better and a greener future, we will throw 25,000 seeds with UAVs. And I want to thank our sponsors for all their contribution to realize this Congress. And starting with distinguished minister, deputy minister, chair, people, executives, and all your participants, I extend you my most heartfelt emotions and gratitude. Thank you for your participation.
Efendim.
Çok teşekkürler.
Thank you. Now, distinguished guests, I would like to invite the Borsa Istanbul CEO and board member of Istanbul Settlement and Custody Bank, Vice Chairperson, Mr. Korkmaz Ergun. Distinguished Minister of Treasury and Finance, Deputy Minister, Capital Markets Board of Turkey's Chairman, dear guests, I would like to greet you all on behalf of Borsa Istanbul with my deepest respects. We're doing our best, striving and offering the means afforded by the capital market, and we want to offer the best for our companies and investors. And to summarize under 3 topics, on one hand, we are increasing the IPOs in order to allocate more resources for our companies. On the other hand, we're trying to strengthen our corporate communication with FDIs, and we're offering new financial services and products, which we're trying to increase. And within this scope, the growth factor of our company's growth is companies, that is investors, producers, those companies that create employment, in order to ensure that they can finance their growth through capital markets. We invest them to our stock market. We changed the way we do business this year. So their applications to trade are not assessed merely by our entity, because at the decision-making stage, at the preparation stage, whatever challenges they have, we solve and we provide support, because our objective is to contribute growth to our companies. And we want to enable the companies to finance their IPOs, because the long-term and cheap currency that they need is only available through capital markets. And on the other hand, we're continuing to strengthen our corporate communication with FDIs. And to this end, the board, we have taken a part in the board and subcommittees of the associations, and we're carrying out the General Secretariat of the Islamic trade exchanges, and we're trying to increase the diversity of the products and services we have offered. We tried to calculate 3 new gold indices on July 7th, so more institutional investors can buy gold-based rent certificates and gold bonds through us. And on September 17th, after gold and silver, platinum and palladium term trade contracts were offered, and we changed the valuation methodology of sustainability index. And October 22, dollar Turkish lira term futures contracts were opened for services on 22 October. And these products that offer flexible maturity and the exchange rate risks of real industries are offered in a reliable and transparent platform for them to manage. And on November 12th, we started calculating 5 participation indices. And on top of these, the mutual funds are built, and futures contracts will be created. Dear participants, throughout the pandemic that affected the entire world, as Istanbul stock market, we continue to offer all our services without interruption. And we went through a significant test as an industry, and we managed to adapt to changing conditions real fast. And I would like to thank all the mediators, all the agencies for their sacrifices. And I would like to extend my condolences for those who have lost their lives. And I would like to thank everyone leading with our colleagues and senior executives. And I would like to extend you my deepest respect. We would like to thank Mr. Korkmaz Ergun, and now I would like to invite the Capital Markets Board of Turkey Chairman, Mr. Ali Fuat Taşkesenlioğlu, to deliver his opening speech. Distinguished Minister, Deputy Minister, distinguished representatives of capital markets, dear press representatives. In the capital markets, all the banks, agencies, portfolio management companies, and investment partnerships have the roof organization, which is the Capital Markets Association, and we are holding the fifth edition of this Congress. And I would like to greet you all with my deepest love and respects, dear Minister and dear guests. Capital markets have gained a significant acceleration recently, and we have been developing in a way that we have targeted for many years. The number of investors have increased from 2.4 million to 1 million. We have reached the highest number of investors, and our volume of trading that used to be 10 billion has increased over 30 billion, which shows that we have gone to a new level. The number of investors have doubled recently, and the number of young investors between the age of 20 to 34 have quadrupled, and it has reaching 690,000. And young savers, young deposit holders have been buying certificates of shares. And in order to render this sustainable and to keep capital markets at this level and to carry them further, the entire industry needs to strive more than ever, as has been clearly shown. Therefore, monitoring the needs of the market closely, interpreting the developments accurately, and frequent self-criticism will carry our industry further. And therefore, once a year, all the stakeholders of the capital market are brought together by this Congress to help ensure that we can revise the needs. And this is an opportunity to self-assess and determine common needs. Losses, gains, or fluctuations and volatilities affect, and this is an innate and natural part of all capital markets. But in order to ensure that this is fair and everyone has simultaneous access to right information and prevention of artificial price movements is something that we are working on as the Capital Market Board. And the investors need a transparent and reliable platform. And as the Capital Market Board, we're aware of our responsibilities. And in order to ensure that the investors can invest safely, we're sustainable in our surveillance and audits. And with the development of digital media, particularly on social media, we see that there's an increase in the efforts and attempts to manipulate the markets. And We are also increasing our surveillance and audit activities to prevent the market deterioration activities. And our board has issued 49 million Turkish liras in fines between 2018 and 2019, but it has reached 265 million Turkish liras, increasing by 5 times between 2020 and 2021. The increase in the number of investors is a desire to be permanent and continuous in the capital markets, and therefore we are the portal to the market, and our intermediaries have important missions and they need to act more responsibly. So in its essence, the intermediaries are a trust entity and they have to know their customers well, and they have to be directed to adequate risk profile products, and they need to be educated financially. When we offer measures as CBM, and the associated people are, it is our natural expectation that you do not allow the disruptive actions of the individuals, and the fact if they are prevented at the first entry point, this will allow the investors to invest safely, because as we all know, intermediaries are not merely commercial entities seeking profit. They are reliable, they are institutions of reliability and reputation that are publicly licensed, and capital markets are sensitive markets and regulated markets, and they should be protected, and the intermediaries should be the eyes and ears of the capital markets board to prevent disruptive actions and manipulations. And there's an important responsibility that is vested on the shoulders of the investors. In regulatory bodies take simultaneous measures in various securities. We announce these to the investors, and the fines issued are explained in detail in our weekly bulletins. But nevertheless, some investors dream of high gains on the short term, so they rely on anonymous accounts on social media to trade in the capital market. And the investors who are partners of public companies, they are protected by us, but our investors must increase their financial literacy, and they shouldn't chase dreams offered by manipulators. And if they do so, the only responsible party will be themselves. Dear Minister and dear guests, the future of our capital markets and has to do with increasing the number of conscious investors with financial literacy. And in order to offer a more analytic perspective for them, we need to give them right, qualified, and accurate reports. Their research and analysis departments should be developed, and this is a long-term investment for the future of our industry. As you know, recently the capital markets main agenda is IPO processes, and price valuation reports are in the center of this. And these reports show the the current state of the companies, future projections, as well as the investment decisions of the investors. They constitute the basis for this, so it is of importance for us, and we monitor them closely. Capital markets are very much interconnected, and financial contamination is intensive, which can deteriorate and which can damage the entire market. So price valuation reports are signed, their assumptions are signed by the intermediaries, and the companies and the investors are the main stakeholders. And to protect their rights and interests, we watch a fine balance. We know that they need to watch a fine balance in their studies. So the intermediaries and the experts that sign the price valuation reports, when they make assumptions for the future terms, they are responsible towards all the stakeholders, leading with our board. And as I end my words, I'm very glad that we are able to come together during the fifth Turkish Capital Markets Congress, and I hope that this is going to offer concrete outputs for the subsequent congresses. And I would like to wish you a great and fruitful congress with my deepest respects.
Bizimle paylaştığı için efendim teşekkür ediyoruz.
Thank you so much to Mr. Taşkesenoğlu for his opening remarks. And now I invite Republic of Turkey Ministry of Treasury and Finance, Minister Lütfi Elvan, for his opening remarks.
Saygıdeğer konuk.
Distinguished guests, dear members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, organized by the Turkish Capital Markets Association, it is quite a pleasure to see all of you at the Turkish Capital Markets Congress, and I salute you all with respect. For the last 20 years, the Turkish capital markets represent a great duties, banks, intermediaries, and all portfolio management companies that make 218 members of us offer services to millions of people. And all the economic transformation of Turkey in the last 20 years also pushed several markets to bear different responsibilities. And we are quite pleased with where we are today. But given our potential and our dynamism, Turkey has to take a lot more steps in capital markets. So the Capital Markets Association of Turkey bears a great responsibility. All stakeholders should bring our country forward, and this requires close cooperation and guiding the public in the best way possible. In this year's Congress, we will focus on digitalization, green transformation, and entrepreneurship. So it is quite valuable and on point to discuss such subjects, because these subjects are the pillars of our own transformation. And I sincerely hope that the outcomes of this Congress will be fruitful, applicable, and I hope that they will accelerate constructive policy efforts. In the last 2 years, the entire world is shaken by a challenging era. All the global pandemic had its consequences on us human beings, but it also shook the global economy. Millions of employments went lost, trillions of dollars are erased from the market, and global poverty has increased for the very first time after 25 years. The worst is almost over, but we are still facing serious threats. For example, the global supply and demand imbalances continue. Global commodity prices are increasing. After quite some time, we are facing inflation rises too. In many countries, public expenses and balances are shaken as well. Now, the worst may be over, but given the latest developments, shows it is clear that we will face many challenges for some time to come. But instead of all the challenges, we've been successful in production, in investment, and in employment. Looking at the latest indicators, you will see that we are differentiated by our figures. With our decisive public policies, we made sure that Turkey decoupled than the rest of the emerging countries. The macroeconomic stability will continue to be one of our top priorities. And looking at the inflation front, unfortunately, we are not where we want to be. The global developments and all the domestic developments bring challenges, and it shows that we have to be vigilant and cautious. Like I always emphasize, with the leadership of private sector, we need a balanced, sustainable, competitive employment and environmentally friendly business climate. And the growth that we target requires maintaining price stability. The inflation standing before us has supply and demand imbalances, but of course it was also distorted because of the changing expectations. And policy sets to tackle these challenges should change and transform too. So all related institutions and bodies should fulfill their own responsibilities. And as the Ministry of Treasury and Finance, we are determined to tackle with inflation, and we express it in any way possible. We guide and monitor prices as well as all domestic developments, and when necessary, we make sure that we take macroprudential measures in a timely fashion. But let me be clear, tackling with inflation requires a holistic approach. And if we fulfill this, then the currency ratios will fall and our risk portfolios will also diminish. And the predictability of Turkey will improve significantly. Turkey has great ambitions and aspires with our industrial infrastructure, with our brave investors, dynamic population, and the capacity to be resilient against all shocks. We bear a huge potential, and in order to make the most of our potential and in order to maintain a strong growth, we need a high quality financing mechanism too. And in this respect, the financing needs of the real sector should have a balanced distribution between money markets and capital markets. And let me share some interesting statistics. Looking at the financial sector of developed country, and the share of capital markets is above 50%. And by the way, in the United States, it's around 73%. In UK, it's 64%. And in EU, it's 58%. But looking at Turkey, unfortunately, this ratio is below 10%, which shows us that deepening capital markets should always be prioritized. Companies should benefit from capital markets not for a single instrument or for a single need. Our companies should look at capital markets and see that from the very first steps to the maturity level of their companies, they have to know that they can benefit from capital markets entirely, and they have to be aware of all the possibilities and opportunities. So in this respect, we are focusing on developing an range of instruments and products to fully support them. And we are working on different financial models. And in order to make it possible, well, we have worked quite hard. We went through critical regulatory changes. And if I were to brief you on these latest changes, let me tell you that in order to support both the companies and the capital markets and to support capital markets widening to a broader base, for the first time in November, for all the publicly listed companies, we brought a corporate tax relief, infrastructure, transformation, energy, and health projects were supported, and so that in order for them to be financed through capital markets, we had a project-based securities initiative. We tried to support all the initiative projects, and we realized crowdfunding mechanisms. So with the last April, we now have 4 additional platforms. They are all registered, and through those platforms, we supported a fund of 5.6 million to 10 different projects. Borrowing guarantee fund will be realized until the end of the year so that real sector companies can benefit from all the leasing and bond possibilities as well. Distinguished guests, in terms of our capital markets, our theme for the year is IPOs. In 2021, the IPOs increased both by numbers and the collected funds. And just like I expressed moments ago, it has reached a historic level. Since the beginning of the year, 19.5 billion liras of 46 IPO transactions are completed, and they are approved by CMB. And the number of approved IPOs reached 49 this year. You see, in the last 7 years, all total IPOs were a mere 47, meaning an average of 7 companies being publicly listed each year. And the geographic distribution of the IPOs are also satisfying and pleasing. Apart from all big 3 municipalities, Denizli, Aydın, Konya, Kütahya, Rize, Balıkesir, Çanakkale, and Erzurum provinces now have public listings. And of course, 3 details should be emphasized. The first thing is that companies listed in Borsa Istanbul and their share of GDP was around 25 to 30%. And see, comparing this with other emerging companies, it was supposed to be around 60% because that is the average. So be the public listings, be the capital increasing through rights issues, we have to focus on what we need the most. And the second thing I want to touch is that all the issued bonds and sukuks that is circulating in other emerging countries, and their share to GDP is around 20%, but in our country, it is a mere 10%. Like I stated, all the borrowing instruments and the guarantee fund will help our real sector to fully benefit from this instrument, this fund as well. And the third thing is privatization. Those companies or the public companies that are not listed should join capital markets, and I believe that this will be a great step in the right direction. The companies that are strategically important should grab the attention of both domestic and international investors. And as the public side, in the coming period, we will focus on privatization and we plan to benefit from IPO possibilities. And within this scope, we believe that a strong and deep-rooted company like Turkish and their decision to go for an IPO is quite valuable, and I hope that their efforts will be fruitful. Dear guests, sustainability has been a hot topic for a couple of years now, and international institutions focus on this issue, as well as development banks, participation banks, and pension funds. All related institutions are now aware of climate change and they are acting with a high sensitivity. So now access to finance is in a way up to all the policies that are introduced to tackle with climate change, reducing carbon footprint, protecting the environment, and focusing on developing the public is on higher demand now. And financing such projects, of course, push capital markets to bear great responsibilities. Social and governance markets are on a tremendous speed of development, and the global ESG market show us that there was a 78 million Turkish liras worth of transaction in the first 9 months, and comparing it with the previous year, it shows us an increase by 50%. So we're talking about an incredible growth here, and all the green bonds in the bond markets are quite attractive. Germany, UK, Spain, Poland, Hungary, and Chile, and many other countries are now focusing and borrowing from green bond markets. So given this reality, we focus on international markets and follow attention-grabbing green bond markets, and we want to have a similar market in our country. So we started our initiatives and efforts, and the first steps are taken by the Turkish Ministry of Treasury and Finance. Within our international borrowing means, in order to borrow in ESG markets, we focus on sustainable market, and our framework plan was issued last week. And as Turkey now, we want to be an active player of this market too. We announced the Sustainable Framework Report, and that report also reflects the type of bond to be issued under ESG, and we introduced how we can benefit from such a great bond. And apart from issuing green bonds, we will also focus on social bonds and green leasing certificates. So we will focus on issuing other instruments as well, together with the framework report. So in addition to its environmental aspect, we will also fulfill the social aspect of ECGs, and we will have all the means and opportunities to fully benefit from those. And when you look at private sector, green borrowing and green leasing certificates are quite important for private sector. So we will take the necessary steps as well, and the related green report will be presented until the end of the year. The draft was opened to public by the capital markets last week. So green transformation requires public and private sector acting hand in hand. So all stakeholders are invited to check and assess the green report. In addition to all of our efforts, we have to renew the sustainable banking infrastructure. Yes, we have to renew it, and we have started to work on this issue too. And within this scope, we have started a work group under the umbrella of BRSA. And until the year end, we will make sure that we will have a roadmap that is parallel to Green Deal action plan. And we will prepare guidelines and different reports to ensure that we get close to this goal. And when we look at these issues, we see two important details. The first is that current savings should be assessed in eligible markets. And the second important thing is that we have to increase the number of savings so that we can make the most out of them. And our citizens should have awareness towards those instruments, and it is on the increase. And the number of public investors have increased tremendously by 100%, just like stated by the chairman of Capital Markets Board, and the number has reached 2.5 million now. And it is quite a great development, but many studies on behavioral financing show that investors actually feel overconfidence, social interaction and generalization, and they sometimes make unhealthy investment decisions. So what I want to grab your attention to is that shares holding time, maturity, in order. Well, Borsa Istanbul is on a great position given the global picture. For example, looking at the 2020 figures compared to GDP on the transactions listing, after Korea, USA, our country is ranked number 4. And this shows that our exchange is quite a liquid exchange. But the fundamental issue here is that looking at Borsa Istanbul, the maturity and the shareholding time has dropped to 18 days. One of the prerequisites to make healthy decisions is to be financially literate, and to have medium-term vision. So in this point, I have to tell you that investors shall make healthy decisions with all the capabilities that I just mentioned. And in this respect, the Capital Markets Board and related institutions bear great responsibilities. As you all know, domestic savings play a crucial role in order to make capital markets grow. So this is quite a need, and given the need, in order to increase domestic savings, we as the CMB have taken important steps and will continue to do so. So in order to increase the competitiveness among pension funds, now we have established the individual pension fund trade platform. And we made sure that individuals under the age of 18 can now have access to pension funds. And together with best contracts, we'll make sure that we can offer them education and health funds. So we paved the way for them to have access to such instruments too. As CMB, we want to deepen our capital markets and we want to increase awareness. So we are working on these domains as well. As you all know, in order to develop and support capital markets, we go through many regulatory changes. And starting with our ministry, all related institutions follow, and they have to follow all the developments and have to make impact assessments, and this is crucial to grow. Why? Because you're going for a regulatory change, but was it effective? Was it really practiced or implemented? You have to follow and monitor all the outcomes. If you're going for a regulatory change, but not having tangible outcomes, then that regulation should be assessed. So our ministry holds great responsibilities, and so does Capital Markets Board and all other related institutions. Efficient regulatory changes should be supported and inefficient ones should be revised and reshaped again. So here, all stakeholders of capital markets shall express their frank assessments and recommendation. We expect your guidance as well. And together with all actors in the sector, we have to have exchange of ideas and we have to support one another. So with such sentiments in mind, as I end my regards, I hope that the 5th Turkish Capital Markets Congress will be auspicious for our entire country. And I congratulate everybody who contributed to realize such an important event, starting with the Turkish Capital Markets Association. Thank you, stay safe.
Sayın Bakanımız Lütfü Elvan'a değerli konuşması için.
Distinguished Minister Lutfi Elvan, thank you for your speech. Our President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is unable to honor our Congress because of his busy schedule, but he sent a written message to convey to you, and now I would like to read it to you. The message of our President for the Turkish Capital Markets Congress. Capital market boards representatives, members, business world representatives, dear guests, I would like to greet you all with love and respect. Thank you for your kind invitation. And I wish that the Turkish Capital Markets Congress is auspicious for our country and for the markets. With your support and in the Congress held by the Turkish Capital Markets Association, I would like to congratulate our professors and academics. And I would like to thank I would like to say welcome to the members of the business, investment and finance world. And we are struggling with a huge health crisis that has economic, social, public, and health aspects. And in economy and in supply crisis, we see significant fractures. And the last year's data and figures show the destruction the pandemic caused in countries' economies. For instance, last year, in international direct investment was reduced by 42%, and the global debt exceeded $380 trillion, and food and commodity prices across the world broke a record of the last decade, and which brought global economy face to face with a huge inflation pressure. And the reports indicate that the inflationist setting will continue for a little while more. And the fractures in the supply chain are witnessed by gasoline queues and empty market shelves. And last year was completed with a growth of 1.8%, and this year's projection is 9% growth. And as such a country, we're following and monitoring these developments closely. And our success and accomplishment in tackling the disease are followed by production, employment, and growth and exports. This will spread into other aspects of economy. And we are looking for new supply channels, and we are more in the forefront. Qualified labor, strategic location, modern infrastructure, and incentive packages mean that Turkey is drawing the attention of international investors. And in line with Turkey's accomplishments, our capital markets and the potential of investment in our country, we believe that this interest will increase in the coming years. And through the associated companies, we would like to open our doors to the foreign direct investors who would, and we're ready to extend all necessary support to them who, whenever they wish to invest in our country. And I'm hoping that this Congress will contribute to our efforts. And as I end my words, I hope that the Congress is successful and is auspicious for our country's economy and for your economies. And I would like to embrace you all with my deepest love and respect. Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, Turkish President. Our capital markets always receive a huge interest and support from our president, for which we're grateful. Now we will be giving gifts, and Capital Markets Board of Turkey Chairman Ali Fuat Taşkesenlioğlu and Turkish Capital Markets Association Chairperson İbrahim Öztop will hand a seat certificate to our minister, distinguished minister, and we would like to invite you on the stage. And dear minister, you're also expected on stage to receive your seat certificate.
Efendim bu arada bugünün anısına
in order to continue with our family photographs, I would like to invite Borsa Istanbul CEO, Mr. Korkmaz Ergun, on the stage for a family photo.
Sayın Bakanım, Sayın Başkanlarım çok
Distinguished Minister, dear chairperson people, thank you very much. Now we have a 10-minute tea and coffee break and see you again 10 minutes later.
Hello,